All right, we're going to start. Hopefully more people show up. If not, we're recording this, so it's going to be available out there for everyone to see the session. Good afternoon. My name is Javier Perez. I'm Director of Product Management for Red Hat Mobile. And
I'm Conor O'Neill. I'm a Product Manager for Red Hat Mobile. I work for Javier here.
So you're in front of the Red Hat Mobile Product Management team of two. Conor is based in Ireland. I'm based in Red Hat Westford office in the Boston area. And we came to Red Hat as part of the Fit Henry acquisition now more than a year and a half ago. More than a year and a half. So we have, I think, an interesting session here. I have a chance to talk to many customers, had a chance to go and promote our product on all different regions, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, in Latin America, North America. And we get a lot of questions from customers, companies, enterprises that are looking to start building mobile apps, right? Start with their mobile strategy. So we thought about this session in combination with some new features and new modules that we are offering in the workforce management space to talk about that. So just to give you the options, give you the ideas, give you the, get you started on if you're starting to think about building mobile apps, especially enterprise mobile apps, internal apps, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next 55 minutes. There's the Twitter handler there, the at Red Hat Mobile. If you want to tweet, hashtag RH Summit, and I'm sure you can find me and Conor on Twitter as well. So if you're looking at your phone, I'm assuming you're tweeting, not looking at your email, right? So let me start with a quick introduction here. I talked a little bit about this on the session that I did this morning, which was more about talking about the latest product, the latest version of the product, Red Hat Mobile Application 4.0. But it's important here to kind of set the scene of when we're talking about enterprise apps, mobile enterprise apps, kind of like the different stages, the different maturity levels that we see with in the industry. And this is not about per country or per region. This is really about individual organizations where they are in terms of their mobile overall strategy. So you normally start with a consumer app, right? What we call B2C, business to consumer apps. And typically, you have your website. And well, my website, I can see my website on the phone. It looks a little bit better. If I do responsive website, I can scroll, but I don't necessarily have the mobile experience, right? Be able to keep the features, the push notifications and the camera and all the things. You don't necessarily have that with your just looking at your website on the mobile device. So then you think, well, I need an app, right? I need a mobile app. So companies normally start that way. I mentioned that typically, consumer apps is one or two or a small number because, what else you're going to show or give to your customers, right? You start with a catalog of products. You start with basically what is on the website. Now let's put it on a mobile app. And with the exception of some industries, you have a limited number of consumer apps that you're going to build. Government is a different case because, government serves all the citizens, and we're basically talking about consumer apps when we talk about government. But we can also talk about internal apps. And that's the next step. That's start looking at the mobile strategy. And that's what we call B2E, business to employee apps. And those are basically giving mobile access to your back-end systems, to your enterprise systems. So any system that today you access at work, if you have to enter your timesheets or if you want to enter your expense reports or you name it, well, why not doing that through a mobile app? Since we already have the consumer experience, all of us have apps on our phones. Most of them are consumer apps, right? We don't have that many enterprise apps there. Why not having the same experience? And been talking about this for some time, and for me, it's a little bit similar to what happened 10, 20 years ago when most of the enterprise systems were moving into kind of like web-based systems, right? Now it's kind of a similar situation where now it's about access those enterprise systems through a mobile device, through a mobile app, right? So we're going from systems of record to systems of engagement, right? Where you have, as a user, access to that information from your mobile device. So you start building apps. It's not one or two. You can build 10, 50, 100 apps, because there's so many different functions, right, that you can build apps for. And then you can move to the next stage, and that's really the digital enterprise. And it's when you go all on the technology, right? So you have not only mobile apps, but Internet of Things, obviously cloud. You can add so many different things on what is called Internet of Things, right? Sensors. You can go all in. And by the way, everything needs a mobile app, right? So when we talk about Internet of Things and we talk about sensors and we talk about beacons, you still need a mobile app to control that, right? To get access to. So it's all about mobile apps, about your mobile strategy. And, well, I mean, you might even transform your organization with software, right? You might you have so many examples where, everyone is becoming now a software company, right? One of our customers, a big bank, just last week in an interview, he was saying, well, it's a bank, right? Big traditional bank. And they're saying, well, we're becoming a software company now. Why? Because of this digital transformation. Why? Because they're building mobile apps. So this is just to give you an idea. It doesn't matter where you are in terms of your level of maturity and mobility in your organizations. These are similar steps that you might be following. And in all these cases, we can help you with mobile application platform. So these are some of the drivers. You can read through the bullet points, but you can think a lot more, right? And you can say, well, it's a solution, right? It's a system. It's a new project that I have to build. Yes, but you can see the benefits, right? The fact that we're all mobile, and we carry our devices all the time. Yeah? They're next to us when we're sleeping as well, right? And they wake us up, and we are there. It's a great opportunity to provide more information and facilitate the work of your employees. So, I'm going to give you different examples. We're going to talk about, where to start. But that's what it's all about, right? It's improve productivity. It's even improve your processes, so streamline operations. It's about, having access there anytime, quicker response. You don't have to go back to your desk or open your laptop and connect to your network first and connect via VPN and maybe use a token for password. You don't have to go through that. You have a mobile experience that on your device, you get that information right away. Reduce paper-based processes, a big one, right? And some of you familiar with our platform. We have what we call rapid mobile app development, kind of drag and drop forms builder. It's about that, right? So every process that we have today in our organizations, every paper-based process that we have can become a mobile app, right? Anything that we do today where we have to sign and we have to write our name and do something paper-based can become an app. There's no reason why we cannot build an app for that, right? You see in many companies, maybe some of yours, that you get there to the lobby, you get to the reception, and the first thing they ask is to sign your name. Well, why not having a tablet there when you can just type your name and take your picture, right? And in real time, you'll be able to see who's there, who's got into the building. A very simple example of paper-based process that can become a mobile app really quickly. And by the way, that's a simple app, right? Not to mention, all the benefits that the sales organization can get of having that information right there at their disposal on their mobile device. And of course, at the end of the day, what we want is to increase our revenues, improve the customer experience, right? So these are some of the drivers. You can think of many others. I'm not going to put Connor on the spot to tell me more, but I don't know if you can think on one.
Well, no, but I think the key point here is there's lots of quick wins that people can get. Sometimes you talk to big organizations, and a lot of it's around analysis paralysis. They want to jump to the third point that Javier had on the previous slide, and they don't realize they can actually get these quick wins when they're using a platform like this. And I think that's get on the journey, and then we can get to the the later bullets and the later slides where you're doing your digital transformation. But there's so many quick wins in enterprises. I think people forget, and that's just a sampling of the types of things that can be done.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea of how to start this journey in terms of mobility, we classify kind of at a high level different types of apps. And in this example, kind of a bottom-up strategy. You normally start with the simple, or our recommendation will be to start with the simple apps, the communication or productivity apps. Actually, pretty much all of us already have those apps, right? It's called messaging, it's called email, WhatsApp, you name it, right? Facebook Messenger and FaceTime and you name it, right? So those are consumer apps that we can use within the enterprise context. We can use that for our jobs. At Red Hat we use a lot Blue Jeans for video conferences. People use them on their tablets, right? Not a great experience. That's another session to talk about that experience. But you can do that with your tablet, right? How many of you, or you've seen your colleagues, just basically replacing their laptops with tablets now, right? There's a lot of people doing that now. And what better experience than having a mobile app for that tablet? No, you don't have to go to your browser and go through the whole thing. It's having an app, right? And I tell this story that when I got my first iPad, the first iPad that was launched, when was that? Like a good 10 years ago? No, actually no, 9-10 years ago. The first iPad feels like a long time, but it's not that long time. And I remember using the iPad, and all I will do is go into different websites, right? And I was like, I don't like this. I mean, you remember the thing with Flash, so the Flash technology not working on the Apple products and iPad. So half of the websites that I was going to, I couldn't even use, right? Because I couldn't see the animation. So ESPN, I couldn't see an ESPN website, for example. And I remember it's like, it's kind of nice to have the tablet there, and you can check that any time, but it's not the right experience. What happened since then? Well, it's all about apps, right? And now, if I'm using my iPad, I must almost never go to the browser. It's all about apps. And we're going through the same on the enterprise world. It's going to be about apps. And if it's not now in your organization, it's going to be in 2 years and 5 years. Very much it's going to be about apps, mobile apps, tablets, smartphones. So we have covered that first one pretty much. But then kind of a next level will be task-based apps. And I'm going to give you a few examples of that on the next slide. But it's just do one task for me. I need an app that does one specific task for me. Relatively simple. You don't have to invest months of development to build an app like that. It's something that you can do really quick, in days or weeks, to build those type of specific apps. Then you get more comfortable with that, and then you can start working on some specialized apps, right? Now, they're going to help me about a specific function that I want to do. This will require back-end integrations, getting access from back-end systems, from enterprise systems, from, in some cases, legacy systems, right? So now you're serious about this, and you can have one team or multiple teams focusing on this type of specialized apps. And then in terms of complexity, the next really step is what we call the workforce management apps, or the field workforce management. And when we talk about workforce management, it's about your workforce that is on the field or on the streets be able to do their jobs with the use of an app, right? So if I'm assigning jobs to my workers, and every day at 8 o'clock in the morning when they show up to work, they turn on their app, I need to have a full workflow of activities to manage those. I need to be able to dispatch that information to my workers. So now we're talking about much more complex apps. We're talking about much more complex back-end integrations. And that's an area where we focus on the Red Hat mobile team on over the last few months. And it was to help you cover that highly complex workforce management type of apps. So we're going to talk about more about that, what some of the features or some of the modules and functionality that we're bringing out on our latest releases of the platform. But it's just to give you an idea of how do we, kind of the journey of going in mobile. So here's some examples. I talk about task-based apps, and these are just some examples, right? I'm going to start from the bottom. A Wayfinder. We just recently worked with one of our customers, which is a hospital. I guess all of us have been in hospitals. Some of them are really large hospitals, and you get lost really quickly, right? And it was like, just simple. Give me an app that tells people how to go from radiology to the lab. And if you think about it, well, it's not that complex actually. But it would be nice if we have it on the app and maybe have some barcodes or QR codes on the corner so people can just scan, know exactly where they are. So it's a specific function for an app, not very complicated, it's not going to be a multi-month, 6 months development, but you can help either your employees or in this case your consumers, your customers, with that one specific function. Alerting, we don't really like an alerting app.
Everybody who works in tech needs alerts.
An app, not just the browser or get the push notification. Get an app that gives you more information about that. That would be great. Well, I mentioned time entry, right? So most of us, if not all of us, at some point or the other, we have to go and do our timesheets. We all enjoy that, right? Doing that from a mobile app, doing that from your phone, and instead of something that maybe you can get into the habit to do it just quickly there. So that's another task, very specific scope to build an app. And another important thing here, well, I'm going to cover that on the next one. So now I'll give you the examples of the specialized apps. And as I mentioned, this is about, obviously complex functions that I need information from other systems, in many cases legacy systems, right? Inventory systems, asset management systems, CRMs, ERPs, you name it. And I need to get that information so I can provide the functionality. Now, one area here that it's important, and you can read through the different examples. You can read that there are more complex apps. One important point here is don't think about this as any other system or any other project that you've done over your careers, right? I got a customer that told me, I just spent more than a year installing this CRM system. I'm not planning to spend a year building the mobile app, right? And it's not that. And we need to think about mobile, it's different. When we think about mobile apps, it's not about having everything that took us months and months and months to put it on a CRM or ERP into a small device. It's not about that. It's not about having multiple screens and tabs and all the information in the world in an app. That's not the mobile experience. A mobile has to be simple. A mobile has to be something that I can access in 3 screens, 5 screens maybe. Yeah? When you go to Twitter, how many screens do you go through? Just one, right? How many tabs do you need to go and check what you're looking for? Just one, or maybe just scrolling, just swiping, right? Same goes with Facebook or some of the other apps that you're familiar with. So a mobile experience is something that you can access really, really quick. And by the way, you don't need a manual, right? There's no such thing with mobile apps, right? No one is reading manuals. It has to be very easy to understand, very easy to use. So that's the mentality that we have to change. And not only us as, providing the new app or the new project, but the users also have to think about that, right? And they have to keep in mind during the life cycle of building these apps that they have to think on mobile. And if it's just too much information, well, that might be just 2 apps or 3 apps or 4 apps. Focus on one specific function or one specific problem that you want to solve, one specific information that you want to get out of the app. And yes, in some cases, it could be very, very complex. In others, not necessarily. You can just always build another app. Now, once you go through this journey, then even your teams are starting to recognize the advantage of the technology and even change some of their processes, which is a double win. So it's important to keep in mind, simplify, think mobile first, think on the apps that you use today as a consumer. That's the experience you want, right? Nobody wants an app that you have to first connect to a VPN and then type passwords and tokens and enter all the information before you go onto the first screen. You don't want that. So with that, I'm back to the top of the pyramid or the triangle there, and that's the workforce management apps. We're going to be doing, I forgot to mention at the beginning, we're going to be doing a live demo. Of some of that functionality. An example of an app, a field workforce management app. And these are some of the features. I'm going to start with right here. Some of the type of information that we want on this type of apps. And think about in your organization in terms of work orders or job orders, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be that you have workers on the field, but it could be anyone that needs to get a job, right? Get an assignment of a specific task or job. So you need to be able to schedule that. You need to be able to do the scheduling and assigning those job orders. Well, we're talking about mobile, right? So be able to locate those jobs and locate those users. So take advantage of the tablet, take advantage of your smartphone GPS capabilities. We're building mobile apps, we want a modern interface, right? We don't want Windows icons. We don't want all design, right? Highly recommended to bring a designer, a graphic designer to help you with the app. Highly recommended. We actually had a session at DevNation yesterday. Designer and a developer. It was really fun. It was really, really good. And it was about showing that working together, engineers, developers, and designers can make things work really, really, really well. And by the way, all these specialized apps that I was talking about and a workforce management app, they're complex. You spend time putting this together. The last thing you want is to have a really bad user experience that the users don't like to use the app, right? So there are some of the features. You're handling lots of data, so also add dashboards, add analytics, messaging, right? Be able to communicate between users, so from app to app or from a web portal where the supervisor or the manager, we're going to be showing a little bit of that, but be able to communicate with the users. There are different ways to do this. You can do it via in-app messaging. You can add push notifications, but that's outside the app. An option. Email, well, you don't want them to get out of the app to go and check email, right? So you just want to internal within the app. So that's for messaging. And obviously a key piece here is the integration with other systems, right? And that's where the mobile application platform comes here to help you. So I'm going to talk about, well, of course, you have to make it flexible. You have to be able to make lots of changes. And that's another key piece. Build your apps, build your mobile solutions to change. Don't build something perfect that is you're not able to change it later. Because there's always new services, there are always new information or third-party systems that you want to integrate. Make it flexible. Build it in a way that you can always add, you can always change. So it could be microservices, it could be completely open architectures, but build it to change. Don't build it to stay there, because it's not going to stay. You're going to have to go and make lots of changes. And by the way, in the mobility, we have new versions of the mobile operating systems all the time, right? We have new versions of new features on the mobile devices all the time. So we need to be able to change that app constantly and keep up with the technology. So that's another very particular about mobile apps. So I was talking about where to start, and I'm going to cover in the next 2 slides, and I'm probably going a little bit too. I'm gonna run out of time, so I'm gonna go a little bit quickly on this one. So we talk about different types of apps, but some of you might be asking, well, so do I do a native app? Do I do a hybrid app? Everyone familiar with the difference? You can read through the bullet points. Or you can do the web apps. I wouldn't consider a web app an app. It's a website, but we can have some arguments.
Some might disagree. They have their place.
And there's something you call progressive web apps that are. I mean, they look very good, and you get the mobile experience. But in terms of native versus hybrid, obviously a key difference there is from the enterprise perspective is, well, you need to have the engineers, you need to have the developers with the skills to build those apps, right? So we talk about iOS, you need to have either skills on Objective-C or Swift, or maybe just everyone should be doing Swift now, right, provided by Apple, or Android, native Android, you have to know Java, for Windows apps, C#, .NET. So, I mean, you think about it now, I'm describing all these different programming languages. That means that you need to have developers that know all of that, or subcontract, or hire, or, to know all of that. Well, maybe not ideal. Hybrid apps, HTML5, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, same code for iOS, Android, Windows, or almost the same code, right? Small changes in design. I'm going to say that most of our, I'm not going to give you a percentage, but most of our customers using our platform, they go with hybrid apps because we're talking about internal apps. We're talking about, the savings of doing it at one time for the different platforms outweighed some of the benefits of native apps. And native apps, you want the new features? Maybe you want to do it native right away, right? So iOS 10 is coming soon. It was announced recently on one of the Apple events. And it has a bunch of new features, very nice features, that you're only going to have on Swift if you're developing on Swift. It's going to take some time for the hybrid apps to catch up with some things like the 3D Touch and a few others, right? The integration with Siri, and you can go on.
But the user experience will never be quite at the same level. You can get close with hybrid, but if you want the absolute, if UX is your thing, native is really the way that people go for that when they're heading in that direction.
So typically the consumer apps are built native. I mean, Facebook there was a big deal when Facebook went from hybrid to native apps because of the user experience. So consumer apps typically go more consumer, more native. Internal B2E apps, more on the hybrid. This is an important slide. These are some of the other considerations you have to have. So, okay, you decided on what type of app you are going to build. One other step here, what used to be, well, there it is, form factors, right? If I do it for one specific phone, but with this BYOD, bring your own device, you have to really build it for iOS, Android. Windows, debatable. No one is building for BlackBerry anymore, right? And actually, the new BlackBerry devices are Android. So it's more about that, not really about the specific device. Form factors is important because on a tablet, you don't want exactly the same app, the way it looks on the device, on the smartphone than on the tablet, right? So it's a different design. You can add even different functionality, but it's a different design. So that's another consideration. Very important, the backend integration. Very, very important. Look that first. Look what are the challenges on integrating with your legacy systems or your other systems or cloud services. What third-party software you want to use. We have a platform that provides a lot of functionality. There's always room for third-party for analytics, MDM, other different activities. The app distribution is important. I get this question a lot, especially in some regions. They ask me, well, how do you distribute the apps? Typically, it's through an MDM solution, mobile device management. We provide a private app store within the platform. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then another important piece is the security, right? Start thinking when you're designing your mobile app about what are the security requirements or security considerations. So let me give you a couple of examples. You can store information on device. You can store information on the cloud. You can encrypt the communication. You can add keys that you can decrypt those on device, or keys to decrypt that on the cloud. You can add multiple layers of security when you're designing your app. You can decide not to store anything on the cloud, not to store anything on device. Highly sensitive data, maybe you don't want to store it. Just encrypt that. Or you want to add two-factor authentication. There's so many options there, and that you have to think about that when you're starting your project. Very, very important. So those are some of the considerations. I'm going to go quickly. I hope everyone is already familiar with Red Hat Mobile Application Platform. Just quickly through what we offer, and then we jumped into some of the new features that were modules that we're providing as part of the platform. The platform is a cloud-based platform. We sit between the enterprise systems and the mobile devices. And the fact that we are there, we're cloud-based, provides different benefits. One of them is, even if we do absolutely nothing, a call from the mobile device, from the app, from the client side, to our platform, what we call the cloud app or the cloud code, even if it does absolutely nothing, we are there, we become a proxy. And you don't expose directly your enterprise systems, in some cases mission-critical system, directly to mobile devices that are outside. So just from the get-go, in terms of the architecture that we propose with our platform, we add a layer of security. We also, with this, we propose to have on the MBAS, on the mobile backend as a service, your cloud code. So you can put more of the functionality of the app on the cloud as opposed to on the client. One huge benefit of this is that every time there are changes on your backend systems, on your web services, on your APIs, on your field on the database, any changes that you do here, you can adjust those on the cloud side and then deploy it again to production, as opposed to asking the users to download the app again, which is, for consumer apps, who cares if I'm not in the latest version of Facebook? But for an enterprise app, you have to be on the latest, and that's important. So it saves a lot of time. The fact that you can do all your changes on the cloud, you don't need to ask the users to download the app again. So another big benefit. I can go on and on with benefits here, and I can spend a couple of hours on the features. But that's some of the things that we propose with this platform, and that's what it's called the mobile backend as a service. Really quick, 3 examples on some of the APIs that we offer, mobile-specific APIs that we offer as part of the MBAS. One is caching. Again, when you're building your apps, you can put some of the information in memory on cache here, so when the app calls, it goes to that cache and back to the app. From the app to caching and back to the app. And you don't overload your backend system. So, good feature, take advantage of that with our platform. Another example is data synchronization. An enterprise app, especially a workforce management type of app, has to be able to work when you are offline, right? You should be able to keep using the app because you're doing your job when you are offline, when you are in a basement or in an area where there's no coverage. You should be able to enter the information, take the picture, whatever the app is doing, and then as soon as you are online, sync that information with the cloud code and then to the backend systems. So we provide a data sync framework that helps developers building that. They don't have to build everything from scratch. They just take our data synchronization framework and put that within the app, or build that within the app. In terms of some of the features, lifecycle management, we provide a private app store, I mentioned, very granular in terms of creating teams. So you can create teams that have, for example, just building the iOS apps, and another team just the backend integrations. It could be very granular in terms of what you can build on the platform. And then from app development, we basically support native, hybrid apps, bring your own tools. There's not a prescription here. You don't need to learn a new language. You don't need to certify it on new framework. Bring the tools that you've been using. We support those on the platform. We have SDKs for hybrid and native apps, and keep building apps. You can also import your existing mobile apps into the platform and start taking advantage of the features. We announced just a few weeks ago version 4 of our platform. Version 4 brings the mobile backend as a service outside the core. So what you have here on the blue, it's hosted on the cloud. The MBAS now, we built a Red Hat stack product on top of RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Docker, Kubernetes, and OpenShift container platform. So we give you the MBAS, we give you, you can install there on-premise or wherever you want, and now you have control of your data, your integrations, doesn't go to the public cloud. So we think that this is a really good option for companies that really want to stay on-premise or want to keep, but also with the benefits of having new features all the time, because we're on the cloud. By the way, we issue a new release every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
Every 4 to 6 weeks, you see a blog post from Connor with the new features, right?
Check from last week. We had another one.
We just did that one, 311. By the way, we started counting just recently, right? Because we had like 500.
Started at 3.5, yeah.
We started recently, but we have more than 500 deployments in production. Just recently, we started counting, and we're on 311. At the end of July, it's going to be 312 and 313, and we're going to keep moving on the hosted. This, which is more of a hybrid, where we ship the MBAS, that's 4.0, and we're going to continue with 4.1, 4.2, and so on. So what are we doing with workforce management? So we learned over the last couple of years that it's in high demand. We got customers asking us for this type of apps, and how can we help them building this type of apps? So it was about some of the features that I just mentioned. It's about, well, we have the platform. Why don't we help developers? We already have some of the features, as I said, data sync and caching. Why don't we just take the next step and build some modules, Node.js and JavaScript modules, that use those features, and it gives you a head start when you're developers, when you're building this type of apps. And that's what we're calling WFM, workforce management. That's what we launched, 3.10, version 3?
Yes.
3.10, so just about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. They're out there. So we're going to jump quickly into a demo. All right? I have one slide. When I mentioned, these are JavaScript and Node.js modules available on NPM today. Well, I'll give you more information later. And they're part of the platform. Right? We're announcing this as a tech preview. You can start using them now. And we're going to show you a template app and a template portal that is now part of the product that gets you started with this type of solution. I mean, we have many different templates to build mobile apps. People normally take those and then start updating from that template. Helps you with best practices and how some of the features work, like data sync. So we provide a good number of templates. For workforce management, that's what we did, right? And then, well, that's the list of some of the templates. Yeah. So you want to jump?
I'll jump in.
We have about 10 minutes.
We have about 10 minutes.
Cover.
It's not a problem. Bear with me for a moment as we just bring it up. So as Javier said, what we really saw over the past few years, we're doing a lot of these types of applications, and we just start seeing patterns, very, very common types of functionality that people want in workforce management type applications. So what we're really talking about are people who get jobs sent to them. They complete those jobs in some way, and they send back something from their mobile device. So what you see here is a classic project in Red Hat Mobile. You see we have a Cordova mobile app, we have a portal application, we have a cloud application, and we have an MBAS service. I'm going to dive into each of these in a little bit, and then I'll actually show you the running code. So the middle piece here is really important. So this is the cloud code. So this is Node.js business logic that's specific to what we're doing here. Now it's a standard Node.js application. It's Node.js, it's the Express web framework. So if you have any experience in either of those, you'll feel very, very comfortable in here. There's nothing proprietary, there's nothing unusual in the way we're doing Node and the way we're doing Express. That business logic is providing the functionality that the mobile apps need, but not just the mobile apps, the portal as well. And this is really important, this idea that you've got a mobile app, you could have a web app, you have a native app, you have all these different types of apps, and they can all share the same business logic that's providing the functionality that's needed. So really, the core of the cloud app that we have is a set of REST APIs, the kind of core functionality we generally provide inside the platform, but also the data sync framework that Javier mentioned earlier on that gives the apps the ability to work offline. And you can see here if you saw some of the modules on the previous screen, you can see we've got various pieces of JavaScript there doing the implementation. I'm not going to dive into the code there, we don't have the time. Back to the project. The other thing you'll see here is an MBAS service. Now really the only fundamental difference between an MBAS service and a cloud app is these services are designed for reusability. So if you think of your cloud code is the code that's specific to my project that delivers what I need to do on the back end in terms of back end functionality. The MBAS services are, well, what do I need to do in the back end that I'm probably going to share across multiple projects, multiple apps, and so on. In this case, what we've created is a very, very simple custom authentication policy that can then be used by the platform. And in fact, in this specific case, it's just kind of fixed usernames and passwords. But it's really showing the idea that in here you might do something like, a very, very custom SAML flow that you might need to do, or Active Directory, LDAP, that kind of thing. All of that can be wrapped in here and then shared across all your various applications. But again, it's Node.js, it's Express. There's no voodoo in there at all. It's pretty standard and straightforward. So if we go back to our project, we'll just pop into the mobile app itself. Because it's a Cordova app, so we're talking HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, we can preview it inside the studio, which is quite nice. We could actually interact with it within the studio. I won't, because we'll go the whole way and try and run it on device. And what you'll see as we go through this is it's been designed using material design, so effectively the Google approach to mobile app kind of UX and look and feel. So it's very modern looking. It's based on AngularJS in terms of the framework used to implement it, and it communicates using our SDKs to our backend to do what it is that we need to do. Equally, we have our portal. So the portal, and that's what we'll be jumping into just in a moment, the portal is also done with material design, but it's actually a static web application. So just pure JavaScript, CSS, talking to a backend, getting the information it needs, displaying that information to users and so on. But one of the real benefits you'll see there is because they're both material design and they're both using web technologies, you get a huge amount of code reuse across the two. So you'll see with some of the modules that effectively, it doesn't matter whether you're talking mobile or a portal, you can use those modules wherever you wish. So on that basis, let's jump over to the actual demo. So this is the portal. This is the code that's actually hosted in our backend and being displayed, in this case, in the browser. This could be on a tablet. It works perfectly well on a tablet. And I'll basically go through the various types of functionality. Now, an important point here is this is an example application. This isn't an off-the-shelf app you're going to suddenly start selling to customers. That's not the way it works. What it is let's take all of these modules that have been built, assemble them into what might be an implementation for a specific customer. But it's, in certain cases, you'll see here, there's some kind of simplistic pieces. So we'll start, we've got our workers. We'll look at our head dispatcher, Louis, who isn't that interesting because Louis is the guy who actually sends the job. So you're not going to see that much around Louis. You won't see any work orders. You see a message. He's got a message from one of the other workers basically saying no answer at location. Where should I go next? And any files that might be associated with Louis would be there. More interestingly is Trevor. So Trevor is a senior truck driver, and if we actually go in, we see he has a lot of work orders associated with him. So he's a busy guy. He's got lots of stuff to do, and he has messages sent back and forward to him using the system. Workers can be parts of groups. And this type of sort of grouping, again, we've taken a simple example here. We've got kind of 3 basic groups. But in a large organization, this could be a full hierarchy that you might be implementing yourself in terms of, gathering these people together into some sort of logical groupings. The map's an important one, funnily enough, because the developer's based in Vancouver. You'll see all of the pins are in Vancouver. What if we zoom it out a little bit and get ourselves back down here? We'll see we have some jobs in San Francisco as well. So this gives the macro view of basically all of the active jobs that are out there and available and are being worked on right now by all of the various workers that are there. So a really important one for HQ-based staff who are trying to figure out exactly what's happening out there. The scheduler is an interesting one. So we've got quite a simple implementation here. It's you can see the jobs that are live against particular workers, at this moment in time on this day. In a real world example, this could be a very, very complex and powerful thing because it could be doing things like, a job comes in, based on criteria it might have. They could be auto-allocated to different users based on metadata that's associated with those users. I mean, you can go very, very far with this type of scheduling. We're really just showing, yes, you have a scheduler. You can use a scheduler and do that. Messages, Javier actually mentioned it earlier on so this is sort of in-app messaging. It's a specific kind of custom implementation. Push notifications in some cases might be more appropriate. And now the push notifications can have deep links into apps. A specific push notification, the user taps on it, it could send them directly into the work order inside the application, which could be nice if they are if they're kind of a multitasking user, they're not 100% in their sort of app the entire time. Files is only, I'll quickly jump over files. Files is simply a way of showing that we can synchronize basically data, and I'm getting a Wi-Fi problem there, synchronize data from device to back end. But the 2 really important bits that we have are work orders, and we'll talk about workflows in a minute. So the fundamental unit of what we're talking about here is a work order. It's a thing, a job that needs to be assigned to a user, and then that user has to actually carry out the job. So you can see we've got a variety of them here. I'm just going to click on New Work Order. There's various types of job order. It might be based on the type of person the job's been sent to. Some might be actual, construction jobs, others might be delivery jobs, but you can have various types of job orders in the systems. And as I said, I'll talk about workflow in a second because that's a critical piece and needs a little bit more time to talk about. So I'll just click on static forms there. We're going to give the job to Trevor. We're going to say fix Union Square because it needs fixing. Go Union Square, and I'm going to actually cheat because I don't know off the top of my head what obviously in a more advanced implementation we would have a point and click or a geo lookup on that. We'll set the finish date to today. We'll set the finish time to 1640, and we'll say go fix it now and create the work order. So that's now created a new work order in the system. It's been assigned to Trevor. Momentarily, that's all going to synchronize using the data sync framework, and that job's now going to get sent out to Trevor. Whilst that's happening, we'll jump over to workflows. So whilst work orders are the fundamental unit of this type of system, the workflow is where all the intelligence is, because this is why it's very, very difficult to have off-the-shelf WFM apps, simply because every single organization is different. Every single group inside every single organization is different in terms of the workflows they work under, in terms of the processes that they use to get jobs done. So this is really where you do all of your custom logic for a specific scenario or a specific set of scenarios. We have, in this particular implementation, we have 3 different ways of doing it. We've got static forms, which are quite simplistic. They're just using AngularJS forms to let you do a static implementation. You could use these where you know that the flow is either never going to change or change rarely. But where the real power comes from is we can use the forms builder, so the rapid mobile application development tool that's inside the studio, to basically drag and drop forms elements. So location, maps, signature capture, barcode scanner, all of that's available. I'll just quickly show you here inside our forms builder. So all of these various fields, drop down, checkboxes, radio buttons, all of these can be dragged and dropped. And then you can simply say that form is now part of, is one of the steps in my workflow, in this specific workflow that I'm assembling, and you have your various steps that are involved there. And then obviously, you can mix the 2 of them together, static for the stuff that never changes, forms for the stuff that does. The really important point about forms, though, is they're dynamic. So you don't have to, let's say your workflow needs to change for whatever reason, an extra field, an extra set of drop-downs, or that data has been pulled from a back-end system and you're using data sources to populate the forms that are going into the workflow. You can make those changes and then push those changes to the existing app. So the app itself doesn't have to change. The next time it runs, it picks up the new workflows, and the users are automatically using those workflows. So this is really the real power of any WFM implementation is in here. Forms means it's much, much easier to do this than it might otherwise have been in the past. The last thing I'll just quickly show, sorry, we've got the forms that we talked about there, you can preview inside this app as well. And finally, I'll just quickly talk about analytics. We only have some sample analytics in here. But in the context of, let's say, utility companies, this may end up being just as important as the workflows themselves, because analytics can potentially show you where your optimizations are. What's actually happening in terms of the workers, how fast they're doing things, how quickly they're closing things out, and so on. And then finally, I will jump over to the app itself, hopefully. We will go here, and Connor manning the booth. Unfortunately, because of the vagaries of the Wi-Fi, I'm using Visor, and it's in a low-res mode, but we'll give it a go. So we'll be talking about the open sourcing now just at the very, very end, but I'll just quickly run through this. I'll highlight the differences rather than the similarities. So we've got this app. I think a key point here, as I mentioned earlier on, that we have a custom auth policy. So it's actually using this to authenticate our user, and I'm getting stuck on the simplest bit. So we log in, and we can see, so this app's running live on my phone here. I'll just pop down this because it's slightly distracting, as is that. And we can see we've got the various job orders that have been assigned to Trevor. This is a standard material design, so we've got our hamburger menu on the left, we've our work orders. But what's different, obviously, this isn't a copy of the portal, because this is the app that's running that's specific to Trevor. So it's Trevor's work orders, it's the map showing Trevor's work orders as well, the calendar, the messages that are specific to him, and so on. This is the Cordova app that's running, as I said, directly on the device. And if we click here, we see we've got new job order, fix Union Square, get it done by the 28th of the 6th at 1640. So we can do begin workflow. Now this is a very, very simple workflow. It's got lower MIPS in it. So we can do things like we do our signature capture. We've got a kind of vehicle inspection at the end. So we'll say it passes. We'll do fuel, continue. And we can see all the information there. So that's basically that work order done. You can see we've got a little tick mark because it's the circular shows that it's in progress. The tick mark shows that it's done. If we very, very quickly go back to our work orders, we should hopefully see that job order 19, fix Union Square, has been done. So our data synchronization system is working perfectly. And that's really the fundamentals of it. That really boils it down to its work. It's jobs with a process that have to be worked through, done in a mobile app and in a portal using a lot of common shared code. So I'll just jump back to the presentation. If it lets us. You got clicker there. Will I finish off on that? Or?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think one of the really important aspects of this is, Red Hat Mobile is on a journey as part of Red Hat to open source everything. We're getting there. It's going to take some time. This is one of the first things that we have absolutely 100% open sourced, and basically the intention from day one was to open source this. So the old Feed Henry, as we were, is now the name for the open source project and our open source projects. And Feed Henry Raincatcher, a name I'm particularly fond of, is the name of the open source project around WFM. So it's very much a community-driven project. All of the code is open source. All of the code is hosted on GitHub, published to NPM, available to you there, and not just the modules themselves, but the apps I've just walked through there, they're available. And not only that, the actual apps I showed you there are available as a template inside the studio, so you can immediately get going without any of the palaver. So we have our new website, feedhenry.org, which is basically just launched, and has everything you need to know there. If you're interested in kind of being part of a community around WFM, around this whole area of process, we'd be more than happy to welcome you into it.
Thanks, Connor. Hope you had a chance to see, this looks like simple sequence between the portal and the app, but there's a lot of complexities there, and we're making these modules open sourced. So that moving with the story of open sourcing all our products, we're Red Hat, that's one of big first step. Anyone can access the NPM modules there, and we're going to keep working on open sourcing more components of the platform. It's not going to be everything at once, but we're going to keep announcing on their feedhenry.org all our open source features. So with that, I think we have a few minutes, just like 3 minutes for Q&A. If you have any questions.
For WFM, there's very little there at the minute. That'll be one of the modules that is in very early stage of development. So that was really just an example of what you might be able to do. That's D3 or whatever the graphing tool is.
D3, yes. And analytics, there are so many options there for third-party integrations, which, it's pretty much your choice. Yeah. Maggie, Josh? Difficult question? No? Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.